My husband, Charlie, he wanted to save young men, just like the one who took his life.
We as the American people deserve to have every Epstein file released with no redactions whatsoever, period.
Right.
Okay, everybody, after a major event this last weekend where we talked about Epstein, I want to just kind of give you a little bit of an update.
When I saw that video that you released, I recognized it was my son, and I confronted him, and he was handed over to lawful law enforcement authorities while conducting extensive interviews and cell phone analysis, and also flying out evidence response teams and hostage rescue teams and evidence tacticians who were collecting evidence in live time and flying them back to Washington, D.C. in our laboratories for immediate analyses. We were able to extract video from the campus feed and at my direction at 8 p.m. in partnership and promise to working with the public to bring this fugitive to justice. We released a newly, never before seen video of the suspect. We also released new enhanced photos of the suspect. A few hours later, that suspect was in custody.
I definitely take issue with a number of decisions that Donald Trump makes, especially when it comes to the people that he decides to appoint to very important positions, including this one, because I did have to make sure that I wasn't going crazy. But when I say that you are the least qualified FBI director in the history of the FBI, that is real, because you are the only one that never even served with the FBI prior to joining, yet we are supposed to believe that
That's
you are
false.
the greatest thing since sliced bread. I didn't ask you a question.
The FBI is in big trouble. Their director is being grilled in Congress, and it looks increasingly likely that the hit on Charlie Kirk was not the work of a lone shooter, but rather the work of a shady organization that runs America.
Meanwhile, we're getting new details about the rifle allegedly used in Charlie Kirk's assassination coming to light now and could hinder the investigation.
Alexis McAdams is live in Utah with those details. Good morning, Alexis.
Good morning, Rachel. And so we are trying to get the latest details about that weapon, but investigators had already told us one thing that we knew a few days ago, was that they found the rifle out wrapped in a towel right near the shooting scene. So they had it, but what we didn't know was exactly how old it was. And it's important to point that out because police say the suspect might have chosen that gun because it was pretty much untraceable.
And I can just sort of picture the scene in a lamplit room with a bunch of guys sitting around eating hummus, thinking about what do we do about this guy telling the truth about us? We must make him stop talking. And there's always one guy with the bright idea, and I can just hear him say, I've got an idea, why don't we just him? That'll shut him up. That'll fix the problem. This is the most unbelievable thing I think I've ever seen. And I don't... Whatever happens next in America, I hope it's in this direction because God is here and you can feel it. And Charlie would have loved this, not just because he loved large groups of people, but because ultimately he was a Christian evangelist. And it actually reminds me of my favorite story ever. So it's about 2,000 years ago in Jerusalem, and Jesus shows up and he starts talking about the people in power, and he starts doing the worst thing that you can do, which is telling the truth about people, and they hate it, and they just go bonkers. They hate it, and they become obsessed with making him stop. This guy's got to stop talking. We've got to shut this guy up. And I can just sort of picture the scene in a lamplit room with a bunch of guys sitting around eating hummus, thinking about what do we do about this guy telling the truth about us? We must make him stop talking. And there's always one guy with the bright idea, and I can just hear him say, I've got an idea, why don't we just kill him? That'll shut him up.
Some people speculate that this is the FBI, and there is a lot of evidence that points towards that. But many are also of the opinion that even the CIA and Mossad could be involved in this. This is a deep rabbit hole, folks, and it becomes more shocking the deeper you go. Just take the current congressional hearings, for example. Kash Patel is already facing criticism for mistakes early on, including a false post he made on social media claiming that the subject in the kill already in custody.
So in the 24 hours after, when we were still looking for the guy, I know you posted that we got him. That ended up not being true. You took some incoming because of that. What led to you posting that? Why did you feel so certain about it? And what do you have to say about the criticism?
No, I appreciate this opportunity. Look, as I stated, I was being transparent with working with the public on our findings as I had them. I stated in that message that we had a subject and that we were going to interview him, and we did, and he was released. The job of the FBI is not just to manhunt the actual suspect who did the suspects, but it's also to eliminate targets and eliminate subjects who are not involved in the process, and that's what we were doing. Could I have worded it a little better in the heat of the moment? Sure.
The FBI is already messing up their lines. This wouldn't happen if they were telling everyone the truth, would it? On Wednesday, Patel sat through a nearly 5-hour hearing with the House Judiciary Committee, where lawmakers grilled him not only about the Kirk case, but also about the FBI's handling of the Jeffrey Epstein files. This quickly turned into a heated back and forth. Ranking member Jamie Raskin pressed Patel on why the FBI hadn't released more documents tied to Epstein. At one point, Raskin demanded to know why Patel hadn't released the names of Epstein's co-conspirators.
Put on your big boy pants and let us know who the pedophiles are, you said. You emphasized that the president and FBI director each had complete authority to release Epstein's client list. You said Epstein's black book is under the, quote, direct control of the director of the FBI. Look at this clip.
This is way off the topic, but who has Jeffrey Epstein's
black book?
Black book.
FBI.
But who? That is, I mean, there's...
Oh, that's under direct control of the director of the FBI.
All right, so you were sworn in as director more than 200 days ago. Now the black book is under your direct control. So why haven't you released the names of Epstein's co-conspirators in the trafficking of young women and girls?
The Rolodex, which is what everybody colloquially refers to as the black book, has been released.
Oh, no, you're talking about what the journalist got 5 years ago? No, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about what you were talking about there.
That's
the black
exactly
book
what I
under
was
the direct control of the FBI director.
We have released more material than anyone else before. The Biden administration, Obama administration had the exact opportunities to release this material, and they never did. And if you are selling the men and women of the FBI, we're not going after predators. Hang on, you said we're not going after child predators. 1,500 child predators arrested this year, 35% increase,
I'll reclaim my time.
4,700 child victims
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to
found.
reclaim my time if you could instruct the witness. Why have you changed your position? There you were saying it's under the direct control of the FBI director and all of it should be released. Why have you changed your position?
Everything that has been lawfully permitted to be released has been released. And as I told you, the investigation was limited. And let me make something crystal clear. I never said Jeffrey Epstein didn't traffic other people, other women, and they're not other victims. This is the investigation we were given from 2006, 7, and 8, and the search warrants from 2006, 7, and 8. That's what we're working with.
Well, wait, have you released all of the stuff that the FBI has seized from Epstein's house? The computers, the emails, the file cabinets, the documents? What about the financial records? Have you released all of that?
Everything the court has allowed us to release.
Which court are you talking about?
Epstein, a wealthy financier and convicted offender, died in jail in 2019. Even after his death, the FBI and prosecutors continued investigating his alleged partners. Back in July, before his assassination, Charlie Kirk, one of the most powerful and influential MAGA podcasters, used his Tuesday show to focus on Jeffrey Epstein. This came just one day after he and other MAGA figures hinted they might follow President Trump's advice to move on.
What's your opinion on the Phase 1 release of the Epstein files? Do you think it was more of a PR stunt with Pam Bondi because she just got into office? What do you think is actually going on, and do you think that she genuinely has the files or people are destroying them?
Well, I think they got to make this right. I mean, we as the American people deserve to have every Epstein file released with no redactions whatsoever, period. Correct. They got to make it right. And we, the American people, ran on transparency. We deserve to see the entire client list. Yeah. Every document the government has regarding the Epstein files, we, the American people, should have on an easy-to-access website immediately in a very, very quick fashion. I'm pushing for that both privately and publicly, just so you know. Yeah. Secondly, there probably are a lot of destroyed documents. I think that's probably the issue.
Andrew Colvett, the show's executive producer, later told Axios that the viral clip people saw didn't tell the whole story. Charlie is not done talking about it. The ball is in the administration's court to find a solution, Colvett said.
I think the DOJ should immediately move to unseal all the Epstein documents in the Southern District of New York.
Yeah. Everything.
And
everything except child sexual assault material.
I think every file should be released to the public the same way as the JFK files. Let the American people decide.
This moment stood out because it showed rare pushback from Trump's own base. Many MAGA supporters were angry about how Epstein's case had been handled, especially the evidence that remained hidden. Kirk also directly called on the Trump administration to clean up what he called the Epstein mess by releasing more information. The Justice Department and FBI had concluded that Epstein didn't have a client list and that he died by suicide, findings that many in Trump world flatly rejected. Some even singled out Attorney General Pam Bondi as the one who should be held accountable.
As he comes under growing pressure to release the Epstein files, the president has called for the release of additional material from the investigation amid new revelations. The White House says it does not want a special counsel. Chief White House correspondent Mary Bruce has the story. Good morning, Mary.
George, good morning to you. Well, the president and this White House are desperate to move past this intrigue, but some of Trump's supporters are not letting this go. They want answers. And now the president is making a sudden turn to try to satisfy his critics and silence this uproar. This morning, trying to quell the unrelenting backlash over his administration's handling of the investigation into convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, the president now ordering the Attorney General to seek the release of additional material. Posting, "I have asked Attorney General Pam Bondi to produce any and all pertinent grand jury testimony, subject to court approval." Bondi quick to respond, "President Trump, we are ready to move the court tomorrow to unseal the grand jury transcripts." But that could be a lengthy process that could require hearings with the judge to determine the impact on victims. This morning, it's not clear if this will be enough to satisfy Trump's critics, including many of his supporters who have been demanding the release of the full FBI files on Epstein. The president's announcement coming just hours after the White House made clear Trump will not be appointing a special prosecutor to investigate, as some Republicans have called for.
The president would not recommend a special prosecutor in the Epstein case. That's how he feels.
President Trump, clearly frustrated with the backlash, tried to calm his supporters. In a Truth Social post that Saturday, he wrote that selfish people were trying to hurt the administration all over a guy who never dies, Jeffrey Epstein, describing him as somebody that nobody cares about. But many conservative voices made it clear they still cared deeply about Epstein and weren't buying the administration's attempt to dismiss the issue. CNN later reported that Trump had spoken directly with Kirk over the weekend.
Okay, everybody, after a major event this last weekend where we talked about Epstein, I want to just kind of give you a little bit of an update because we've been covering other stories as well. Breaking today, President Donald Trump said, "Any credible information, let them have it." So here's a good place to start. There's an Office of Personnel report at the Department of Justice of a report where they interviewed Alexander Acosta, who was the U.S. attorney back in 2007 that prosecuted Jeffrey Epstein on a very, let's just say, suspicious case. He was not treated harshly. The original search warrant was selectively composed to try to protect Epstein. So the whole point of this Office of Personnel report goes to the underlying transcripts, and we can get access to that right now. Well, not we, but the Attorney General of the United States can get access to that. President Donald Trump has greenlit this. He said, "Any credible information, Pam Bondi, you can release it."
Now, this exchange was particularly important. Many people speculate that Trump actually wanted Kirk to stop talking about the Epstein files, something that Kirk obviously did not do. Would assassinating him solve the problem? Not really. It would attract too much attention to what he'd been talking about last, that is, the Epstein files, right?
So I know Pam. I think Pam should do this. I think Pam should walk down the hall to the Office of Personnel Report, OPR, and get this report. In it is a ton of information. Secondly, I think the Department of Justice should move to unseal the grand jury testimony in the Ghislaine Maxwell case. Number 3, I think that Ghislaine Maxwell should be given green light. Go talk, let people ask questions, figure out what the heck is going on. Was Jeffrey Epstein an intelligence asset? Now, the Israeli government has come out and said, nope, he was not one of ours, under no means necessary. And so, was he Saudi? Was he MI6? Was he CIA? We do not know. And our audience is really fired up about the story. We've been covering it extensively. Yesterday, we were covering a lot of other stories as well, but today we had Mike Bentz on, we had a couple of reporters on. This is some breaking news. President Trump today had said, "Any credible information, let them have it." A good place to start is unsealing the Department of Justice grand jury testimony, the Office of Personnel report. In there, we're going to find out all the information of the intel aspects of this. So we're very much on this. Keep the pressure on. And I really want to get to the bottom of this because transparency is critical. Transparency is key. Thank you.
Well, the FBI and CIA likely thought around that angle. You see, before Charlie Kirk was assassinated, he had actually started becoming very vocal in his criticism of Israel and Netanyahu. On October 23, 2023, after Israel acknowledged a strike near Gaza's St. Porphyrius Church that killed civilians sheltering there, Kirk publicly pressed for more transparency. After last week's hospital fiasco, I wanted to wait for more facts to be established, but it now seems confirmed that Israel did actually building adjacent to the church. Christians who were sheltering there, including family of Justin Amish. Now, as anti-Israel sentiment grows, he's a coincidence? Maybe, but it doesn't explain one thing. Netanyahu not only had a statement out in minutes following Charlie Kirk's assassination, but he even went on air to clarify that Israel and Mossad did not kill Charlie Kirk.
Joseph Goebbels, the propaganda minister, said that the bigger the lie, the faster it will spread. Well, somebody has fabricated a monstrous big lie that Israel had something to do with Charlie Kirk's horrific. This is insane. It is false. It is outrageous. Charlie Kirk was a giant, a once-in-a-century talent who defended freedom, defended America, defended our common Judeo-Christian civilization. Charlie loved Israel. He loved the Jewish people. He told me so in a letter that he sent me just a few months ago. One of my greatest joys as a Christian, he said, is advocating for Israel and forming alliances with Jews to protect Judeo-Christian civilization. He encouraged me to make the case directly to the American people about how vital Israel is to U.S. national security. He told me, the Holy Land is so important to my life, it pains me to see support for Israel slip away. Now, if Charlie disagreed with a policy of mine or a decision here and there, not only did I not mind, I welcomed it. This is the essence of Charlie. This is the essence of a free country. It's exactly what Charlie stood for. And I knew that his suggestions always came from the heart, from his love for Israel and from his love for the Jewish people. A few weeks before his death, I spoke to Charlie. I invited him to visit Israel again. And sadly, that won't happen. Now some are peddling these disgusting rumors, perhaps out of obsession, perhaps with Qatari funding. What I do know is this: Charlie Kirk was a great man, and a great man deserves honor, not lies. Rest in peace, Charlie Kirk. May your memory be a blessing.
It seems a bit much for the Prime Minister of a completely uninvolved country to even comment on that matter, let alone deny responsibility. Why did he feel the need to do that?
I don't know who specifically came out and said that Bibi Charlie Kirk, but now that he's for the second time denying that he is, people are going, what's actually going on here?
Joseph Goebbels, the propaganda minister, said that the bigger the lie, the faster it will spread. Well, somebody has fabricated a monstrous big lie that Israel had something to do with Charlie Kirk's horrific.
I don't know, guys. That Israeli propaganda just ain't hitting the same. You're not making people feel comfortable with the fact that you keep coming out to have to deny something that certainly wasn't asserted by me on this program. And you're doubling down on your lie. I told you to publish the full letter that Charlie wrote you, not lines of it. Okay? It's a lie by omission. And to stop mentioning the fact that you invited him to Israel just 2 weeks ago without mentioning the fact that he declined to go. Am I lying? Can anybody actually work and assert that I am lying? You can say my name. Candace Owens lied. Charlie said, I'd love to go to Israel. Charlie said, I'd love to have you on my radio show. They have sent the hounds out, but they're unable to actually dispute the words that are coming out of my mouth.
The matter becomes even more suspicious when you consider that Mossad has long been rumored to have used Jeffrey Epstein to gather intel on the United States' top politicians for blackmail material. If that were the case and Charlie Kirk was pressuring the government to release the Epstein files, the trail very likely could have led back to Mossad and Netanyahu's involvement.
Yes, I do smell a rat. And I'd like to know why no one in the media is talking about the investigation or the fact that there should have been an investigation into whether or not Jeffrey Epstein was working for a foreign intelligence service. You know, let's say that...
So that's really interesting. So look, you've studied into this. What is the evidence that he might have been?
He is a textbook example of an access agent. You're, like I said the last time I was on the show, Piers, you're not going to recruit Bill Clinton. You're not going to recruit Bill Gates. You're not going to recruit Alan Dershowitz. But you can recruit someone who gets close to those people. You can give them something that you can hold over their heads if you have to in the end. And then you report back to your handlers everything that they say. And in exchange, you get untold wealth and a house in the Caribbean and the biggest townhouse in Manhattan and a private plane. And that's a pretty good life, especially if you're and you enjoy doing things like that. And nobody's talking about whether or not he was an access agent.
Yeah, I mean, that's really interesting. I mean, does the intelligence community believe that there is merit to that suggestion?
Yes, it does. It does. But the problem here is the accusation is that he was an access agent for the Israelis. And that's something that the intelligence community really doesn't like to touch.
Why?
Because we have this special relationship with Israel, not like a Five Eyes relationship like we have with the UK, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, but this special relationship where we share so much, we provide so much, we work with the Israelis on issues all around the region, at least around the world, and on a handful of issues. Why upset the balance over one dead? Isn't it easier just to cover it up?
Brian, what do you think of that?
I believe that Jeffrey Epstein surrounded himself with a lot of powerful people. It is very, very possible that he could have been working for a government agency. Very, very possible as well. I would tend to agree with the fact that this needs to be investigated more. The media needs to talk about it more. And I don't think this is just a situation where Jeffrey Epstein was getting people to come on his island and sadly do horrible things to young girls. I think there's a lot more to this story. I think there's a lot of people hiding a lot of information. So I certainly agree with what he just said.
One of the most emotional moments came from Kirk's wife, Erica. Fighting back tears, she told the crowd she had forgiven her husband's alleged.
My husband, Charlie, he wanted to save young men, just like the one who took his life. That young man, on the cross, our Savior said, "Father, forgive them, for they not know what they do." That man, that young man, I forgive him. I forgive him because it was what Christ did and is what Charlie would do. The answer to hate is not hate. The answer we know from the gospel is love, and always love. Love for our enemies and love for those who persecute us.
President Trump, however, gave a very different take. He openly disagreed with Erica's message of forgiveness. "I hate my opponent and I don't want the best for them," Trump said. He added, "I'm sorry, Erica."
But through it all, the core of Charlie's message and his basic method never changed. It never really changed. He stayed the same person also. At every campus event, Charlie asked the people who disagreed with him to come forward, and instead of silencing them, he handed them a microphone and let them speak. And he'd convinced so many of them. It was a pretty amazing thing to watch, actually. Shortly before Charlie arrived on campus, the day he was a staff member, texted him that there were many critics and students who were opposed to his views, and rather strenuously in the crowd. And that actually made him feel good, because he wanted to convince them. He understood. He really did. He understood what was right. And he was right about that. A lot of it was based on common sense, by the way. Charlie wrote back to the staff member saying, I'm not here to fight them. I want to know them and love them, and I want to reach them and try and lead them into a great way of life in our country. In that private moment on his dying day, we find everything we need to know about who Charlie Kirk truly was. He was a missionary with a noble spirit and a great, great purpose. He did not hate his opponents. He wanted the best for them. That's where I disagreed with Charlie. I hate my opponent, and I don't want the best for them. I'm sorry. I am sorry, Erica. But now Erica can talk to me and the whole group, and maybe they can convince me that that's not right, but I can't stand my opponent.
The service drew enormous crowds. People lined up for hours outside the stadium, and some even camped overnight just to make sure they got inside. Many wore MAGA hats, Trump-branded gear, and outfits in red, white, and blue, creating a powerful show of support. And maybe that's exactly what the FBI, CIA, Trump, Netanyahu, and the Mossad want. Everything becomes extremely convenient for them if the public remembers Kirk as a warrior against the left and not the right-wing commentator who had begun criticizing the governments of not only his country, but also of Israel. The question, though, remains, will the FBI succeed in its mission, or will the people see through it? Only time will tell. What do you think? Let us know in the comments below.